We are now switching to Slovakia. I don't know if you know the daily newspaper Dennik K. It was established only in 2015, and within the last 3 years, it has already become profitable, with 80% of revenues coming from online subscriptions, with readers paying mostly for the high-quality investigative pieces, interviews, and in-depth reports. So journalism really pays here. I'm very happy now to introduce Tomas to you. He's the executive board member and head of online activities at Dennik in Slovakia. Thank you very much for joining.
Hello, good afternoon. So I want to quickly tell you a story that starts with this front page. It's a front page of the newspaper that I used to work for more than 10 years. You can see the newsroom, and the newsroom is empty because on that day, local oligarch in Slovakia, connected with the biggest corruption scandals, actually thought it would be nice to own the biggest paper in the country. So he bought the paper, and more than half of the journalists working for the paper said they are not willing to work for this guy, and actually quit the paper. So it was a brave thing to do from a lot of my colleagues who didn't know where they will get their salary from next month. But it was still the easy part. The hard part was how you can take such an insane idea of actually starting a print newspaper in 2015, and how can you actually make it not only create the quality journalism, but also how you can make it profitable and sustainable in long term. So first, each business has two sides. So first, this is a cost side. This is actually our CEO in my living room about a month after we started replying to the help desk questions. So I would like to say that, well, we make a simple decision. So we will only do what we actually know to do. We had no salespeople leaving. We had no other people leaving than the journalists. So we said, okay, we will actually only employ journalists and then later software developers, because that's the only thing we actually can do. And if we will need something else, we will just outsource it or ask some other company to come in. So until now, the structure is that 90% of the employees are journalists. The CEO is journalist. I'm a former journalist, and the CEO, apart from being the CEO, he still writes the articles. So it's almost like 100% journalists. Now, on the revenue side, it's more problematic, but I would like to say that we made a very wise decision to focus on subscriptions because we knew where the advertising was going and so on. In reality, we didn't have any salespeople, so we had absolutely no idea how we could get any money from the advertisement. So we just say, again, let's do what we actually can do. And the second reason was that the oligarch that bought the paper was actually, we knew that he's actually trying to actively prevent us from launching the paper. So he was going around big companies and explaining, maybe it's not in your best interest to advertise with this paper and so on. So we knew there's nothing we can do about it, but he cannot go around 20,000 people and tell them not to subscribe. So we said, okay, we are only going to focus on subscriptions and nothing else. In terms of the content strategy, if you look at all the bubbles, that's basically what we are all producing. That's what my old paper was producing. So you have some long-form articles here, which take a lot of time to produce. They bring revenues in subscriptions because people are paying for that. Then you have something in the middle, which is actually most of the production, like 500 words article, 600 words, something happened, the government decided about something, and so on. And then you have very fast breaking news, 2 or 3 sentences that you are producing. What was our strategy? Basically, we said we will do this because it brings money. We will do very far left because it brings traffic, and we will absolutely ignore the middle. Because we don't see any reason, we don't see any business model for that. So we will absolutely ignore the middle of what was actually 80% of what we are doing until that time. What is the 80% of what is in the daily paper when you open it, and you have a 500, 700 words long article. Second, what do we need? So we went around a lot of companies. We were in kind of a panic for first 2 months. We said we were without the jobs, and we wanted to start something quickly because the emotions connected with us leaving were going down. Like, people said they would like to support us first, but then they were going about their business, and so we knew didn't have a lot of time. So surprisingly, we realized when we started to basically shop for the software, realized it's not other publishers that have what we need. It's actually e-commerce companies, and it's actually gaming companies. So if you imagine typical gaming business, if you have a game on your iPhone, what the business they are in is that 95 to 99% of the people will never pay for the game. It's usually freemium model. But their business is in finding that 1 to 5 to 10% of the people who actually willing to pay, and then they are paying for all the development and for everything. So we took this software from the gaming that we used for ourselves, and it allows us to create very complex rules on how we actually target people who we think they are willing to subscribe and so on, and we started using more and more of that. Now, this is the email. This is the screenshot of email that every single reporter gets in the morning before the main meeting. And what it says is, it says the headline of the article, how many subscriptions this one article sold yesterday, and what is the revenue for that one article. Now, I can see a lot of horrified pages, a lot of horrified faces already now, because it is completely breaking the barrier between the business side and the editorial side. And we were all born in a world where this is, you just cannot break the barrier. You have to have the barrier there. But give me 2 more minutes and I will explain the results. So basically we said this is the feedback that we will be giving the reporters every single day. They are all shareholders in the paper, and they are still deciding for themselves what they are doing. But we will just keep giving them the feedback, and we will see what happens. So what actually happens when you say when a reporter asks me how many page views did my article have, I tell them I will not tell you. You should not be interested in page views. You should only be interested in the conversions, in how many people actually wanted to pay for that. And until then, you cannot know. If you are our reporter, you will not know how many page views you have. So these are the 6 of our best-selling articles in those 3 years. And if you imagine that would be a clickbait or something like that, it's absolutely opposite. So the first one is very long investigative piece where our reporter actually went to Belize and found the guy wanted by Interpol and interviewed him about the crimes he did. Second is basically Chinese manufacturing analysis of what is happening in Chinese economy and what impact it will have on the European economy, and the reporter went around China and actually saw what the factories are doing there. The third one is Washington Post. Fourth one, again, these are the articles that brings the most money to our company. Fourth, interview about the faith. Number 5, interview about the corruption with the former investigator and so on. So I'm showing this because we actually realized that there is a very, very strong correlation between what people want to pay for and what we ourselves as a journalist consider quality journalism. These are all articles that are winning the journalism prizes. This is what we are really proud of. And the correlation with what people pay for is very strong, which is absolutely not the case when we talk about correlation between page views, for example, and quality journalism. This is what actually happens in numbers. Again, we never told the journalists write more articles, write less articles, and so on. They are managing their own time, But only 2 months ago, we actually had an idea to make statistics. And we realized that this is a perfect sample of the same 45 journalists that left 3 years ago are still working there. No one left. So it's exactly the same 45 people. But in 3 years, they changed their habits that they are writing 1/3 less articles, but each article is getting longer and longer. And why is that? Because they realize that it's that moving from the middle. Like you either have a fast news and you write it in 2 sentences and move on, or you have to really think hard about what are you going to bring to the reader that he has never ever seen before, because only for such stuff he's willing to pay for. So the reporters are changing their habits. Basically, they are writing less and less articles, but each one is longer and longer with more and more added value. Just not to brag, okay, to brag as well, but just to bring the point that this is not about bringing money to the publisher. This is actually really about the very high correlation between the subscriptions and what we've considered quality value. And every single year since we existed, we got more journalistic prizes than all the other papers combined in Slovakia, with the 45 people actually focused on selling subscriptions. This is how it looks business-wise. So the company is owned, half of the company is owned by reporters, so every reporter owns quite a significant share. The second half is owned by private investors. we took 1.2 million euros for the launch from the private investors, and we only managed to spend half of it before we actually turned profitable. So we already returned some money last year, and we expect quite a nice profit this year. Now, instead of the summary, 2 ideas that I would like you to steal from us. One, apart from selling subscriptions, so we are selling like 2-tier subscription. One is more like 5 euros per month subscription. Second one is 8 euros, 9 euros per month, more like a club or membership or something like that. Apart from that, we are working hard on creating a new ideas how we can extract more money from the same subscribers. So for example, we are doing a lot of crowdfunding projects. About like almost every month we create a separate project, and we test it on the market in a way that we put it out there and we ask, if you want to send us money, we will do it. If you will not send us money, we will not do it. So we are doing this for separate stories. So for example, for the China story, I put out crowdfunding saying, I need 4,000 euros to go to China for 2 weeks. Either you want to support it or not. You know, you readers, you decide whether you actually want to support it. But there were some not less successful, more successful. This is by far the most successful idea we had. It came from teachers at the high schools, and the teachers were telling us, like a year ago, 2 years ago, when the problem of the conspiracy theories and the fake news was, I would say, at the peak, they were telling us, we would really like to explain to our children how they should defend themselves against the fake news. But we have nothing to work with. Like, it will take government 10 years before they actually produce some material that how we should actually teach this. So we said, okay, we know how to produce content, so we will write the magazine. We will create a magazine that will actually explain, we will put together all the professionals, teachers, guys with the methodology, like how you should actually teach this if you want to protect children against conspiracy theories. So we will produce the content, but you have to pay, your readers have to pay for the distribution. So for every 80 cents that you donate, we will give the magazines to one of the pupils in the school. This was the first crowdfunding was in 2 weeks. We got more than 40,000 euros just for the distribution of this. So immediately, like a new network of the teachers and of the schools was created. Now we have a Facebook group for them. We have a mailing list and so on. They are actually coming together and voting on what should the next topics be, like what kind of other materials they are missing in schools. So we have done 3 more of these, and each of them gets like tens of thousands of euros in contributions. The genius of the idea is that this is a magazine that you could buy in newsstand, but it was not our best-selling magazine. Not a lot of people think, you know, I should buy a magazine about conspiracy theories because I should really be wiser not to believe anything on the internet. It's not how people think. But how people do think is, you know, those children, they should learn about how to not believe Russian propaganda and so on. You know, so people are not willing to buy it for themselves, but everyone is very willing to buy it for someone else. You know, so our children are wiser. You know, and please, just here is my 500 euros, but please just teach them something. You know, so they are they are wiser. The second thing, when I mentioned the software. After some time of using this, we are still using the gaming software, but after some time we realized a lot of the analytic software that is out there is not really good for our needs, so we started to develop our own, and thanks to some Google grant, we are actually putting everything as open source out there. So if you are looking for tools for email marketing or for on-site marketing or for managing the subscribers, all our software is on the web page. It will be produced for another 2 years, and you can take it for free, and you can use it, you can change it, you can do whatever. Well, hopefully there is some network, some other publishers are starting to create, for example, our Hungarian partner is creating a software for crowdfunding, and that will be a separate module, and that will be, you can connect it to this one. So whatever you need, you can just take one module and use it in publishing. So I think that's all for me, but I think we should have time for questions. Definitely. Right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thomas, I go for your questions. Please. We have a mic in the room. He's running from the back.
Hi, this is Srini from India, and When you spoke about the articles which got subscriptions, I'm assuming that if you wanted to read that article, you had to pay a subscription at that point of time, and then it actually turned around. Because I wonder what is the action that actually attributed that subscription to that particular article.
Yeah, so you can only buy, like the smallest subscription you can buy with us is 1 month. So those people are always buying monthly or yearly subscriptions, but the attribution is always, he has to buy it right on that article. So I'm in the article and I click, I buy it here.
Directly attributable.
So it's like only like 2 or 3% of all subscriptions are actually attributed, but it's enough data to actually have an idea of what's going on.
I'm sorry, that brings me to the second question. So what part of the article do you actually show to the user before he has to subscribe? Because obviously, other than the headlines, there must be something, there must be a format by which you would be publishing that article, and there would also be some kind of, on Facebook or on other social media, you would be promoting that in order for it to get attraction enough.
So now we are actually launching the part of the software that is measuring where you should put the cut. At the moment, our reporters are doing it. So the reporter decides, for example, they know that if you put the break in the middle of the sentence, it converts better than if you put it at the end of the sentence.
But you measure all that.
Yeah, but at the moment, what we are starting to measure is, okay, is the ideal 5 paragraphs or 7 paragraphs or 8 paragraphs, At the moment, it's really like a hunch, I think it should be here and it will be here. But it's always, that's the advantage of being on the right side of the chart I was showing, that if you only have a long form articles, if you have articles over 1,000 words each, then you can show quite a lot. So you can even show ads there, because the user anyway spends 36 seconds there or 60 seconds, even when he doesn't have a subscription. So he will get an idea what is there, and he will decide whether he wants to subscribe or not.
And do you also measure images, how images work? Which images might work better with an article?
We have now, that's one of the things that we couldn't find in other software. So yes, we now have like if you are using Chartbeat or any other software, you can measure, you can A/B test images, usually for clicks. In the software that we are now doing, you can A/B test images for conversions. But you have to have a lot of conversions. And the interesting thing is that quite often it's in A/B test, when you have more clicks, you have less conversions. So I would say be careful what you are measuring, because we used some off-the-shelf software where we are really measuring, like, this is a great article because twice more people are clicking on the headline, and the software was not providing with the conversion. But when you measure the conversions as well, you realize, okay, more people are coming, but less people are buying. So I actually want the more boring headline, because it actually brings more the right people who actually wants to buy a subscription.
There's a question from the lady over there.
Hi, this is Bhuvna. I'm from India. You were mentioning that you made your journalists to focus on what was the conversion and not on the page views. I would like to understand, and you mentioned it had an impact on the newsroom. So how did this discussion happen? And probably for a journalist, what mattered would have been the page views. How many people read my article rather than buying the content. So how did you take it forward?
Well, the interesting thing is that we were trying to measure conversions before in the old paper with the same journalists, and there was a tremendous backlash, and no one wanted to do this, and we don't want to know anything about the business. After we switched to the new company, there was no resistance, because the logic was simple: either people will buy the subscriptions, or you will not have any salary next month. It's our company, it's your company as well, and there's no other source of the money. If people don't buy it, you will not have a salary. So that focuses, of course, the mind. On the other hand, again, the journalists have a huge freedom still, so no one will tell them it was a wrong article because you didn't convert. It's just. So it's very friendly kind of reminding them. And now what we are working on is actually like an analytic system for separate journalists, because we don't want people who are writing about arts. We have the best person writing about modern arts in Slovakia, I think. And the articles will never convert as much as when you write about the government has fallen, as our has fallen this week. So what we want is to give a tool to journalists to learn from his own articles. Because, one example, we have one guy who is writing, his job is write foreign policy opinions, but his hobby is actually like a military history. And whenever he writes about military history, it's 5 times more successful than actually his main job. So we will not fire him from the main job. We will never tell him, stop doing this. But just every day he's reminded, think about it, maybe on Saturday we will have a time, just this email are reminding him, this is actually the most successful thing that from what you are doing. So maybe do a little bit more of the successful one and a little bit less of the less successful one, But it's, it happens like unconsciously, I think, in the minds, but that's the objective.
You have a question.
Hi, my name is Greg Pichota from Oxford University. Do you connect the journalist's salary in any way with the results of their work?
Yes,
Because
sure.
basically you see whether they sell more or not, so in theory you could combine it.
Yes. So yes, the answer is yes. So everyone has a salary, but the bonuses every month are based mostly on the conversions.
Really?
So every month the list is public, so everyone sees everyone else's conversions, and at the end of the month it's, I would say, 10% of the salary, 20%, so it's not a huge amount, but it's still by far the biggest bonus you are getting, and the editor-in-chief will send the list, and sometimes he will make a correction, like he will say, for example, we have the problem with video, we put the video for free on YouTube, so he will say, okay, these are the 15 guys, I'm giving bonuses based on the conversions, and plus these 2 guys, because of something they did that cannot convert people or whatever. But it's still, so it's not 100% based on that, but it's like 80% based on that.
But how do you keep the peace in your organization with that?
How do
you keep the peace in your organization with that? Because on the other hand, you say, we need arts, we need that, we're in a newspaper with value, with a self-understanding that we really provide good stories for the whole range.
Yes.
So how does that go together, that if you have 20% of the people who always get the most wage?
It's not like that. It's like, for example, for first 2 years, we didn't have any sports news. We just said, we don't know how to do it better than anyone else, so we will not do it at all. And after 2 years, and we also thought, to be honest, it will never bring money, because in our old paper, people were never paying for the sports news. And we had 10 people working sports. Then we found one guy who really thought he's the great sport writer, so we hired and we announced, now after 2 years, finally we are opening the sports section with one guy. And finally, and this guy is now like one of the best-selling authors, because he found a way how to write sports completely differently. He never cares about the results. He never cares about what other media are writing. He just makes like a very strong pieces, like he spends 1 week with one sportsman and then writes like a very in-depth piece. So I don't think, again, the correlation is not 100%, but I don't think there is an area where you would feel that I can never convert, I can never get subscriptions, Even the girl writing about the modern arts, I would say it's a little bit harder for her, but she has all the field open, she can write about something else, or she will, basically what's happening, she will be trying to find a different ways how to write that actually attract subscribers. But there is no one saying, it's unfair because people never pay for sports or people never pay for opinions or whatever. People pay for whatever topic if it's written in a way that you really think, okay, wow, I really have to read this.
There's another question again from you.
I'm sure there would have been targets. So if I'm interested in writing something and which is convertible, do I have how many pieces I write in a week or in a month? Was there any target given to me?
No, never.
No.
We are more pushing, like, we are asking the reporters to come back to us and say, like, of course there is a daily meeting and someone says, okay, today you will do this. But we are pushing reporters more to think for themselves and say, I don't want to do anything else this week because I'm working on this one big topic. That's what we want from them. So.
Very last question from me. Coming back to the crowdfundings, do you crowdfund on your own platform, or do you go to something like we have Startnext, Kickstarter, whatever, or do you do it in your own?
We are at the moment
realm.
using like a third-party platform, and we will switch to our own through this year, just to integrate the data.
To integrate the data. And do you think further in that, like more print to own, like almost anything could be funded by the readers to say we want more from that and more from that? Do you think that will become bigger in the future, this crowdfunding sourcing for articles?
I think it will. The challenge there is, for example, we did 4 stories like the China story or the Japan story I mentioned. We are not doing that again because it's not that expensive and it's very time consuming doing the crowdfunding. So if I need 5,000 euros, it's better I just take 5,000 euros from the bank account and then spend time with crowdfunding. So we need to find projects that are really in tens of thousands of euros. And that's the point where it's actually worth investing the money and marketing into the crowdfunding. So we are thinking more like we will not do individual stories like this is we did one like on Trump and so on. But we are thinking more like for next year we want to have one more guy writing about, I don't know, modern arts or whatever. So like a new rubric or new section of the webpage, and we need 50,000 euros for that for a whole year.
So help us.
So let's see if you are interested or not.
Interesting. Thank you very much for this deep insights into Slovakia.